afternoon. Good afternoon, one and all. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Today, hello everyone, and welcome to Ask the Professional series brought to you by the BBPA as we seek to support our community, particularly as we wrestle through this new societal norm. Today happens to be Veterans Day for those that do not know. So, and just in kind or perfectly aligned, we are going to be talking about our military force. But before we get into that, I'm Anton James. I'm your host today. I'm a marketing, sales, and training consultant. And I'll be navigating the conversation today as we seek to discuss careers in the Canadian military. To help share some understanding this, we have a special guest today, Sergeant Delroy Gordon. There you go. So let's start it right off. Let's jump right into it. So before we do, I'll go into a few normalities. As long as we go along, you may have some questions. For those that feel they'll want to ask directly, you can ask at any time. And or if you have some challenges and you don't want to ask directly, you can just go into the chat and put your questions in. And then I will do my best to try to address that and ask that time. Is that okay? All right. So let's jump right into it. Good morning, Delroy. How are you? Sergeant Delroy. I'm so sorry. Sergeant Delroy Gordon. How are you?
Morning, Anton. I'm well. I'm well. And this is a special day, as you said. It's kind of fortuitous that I happen to be doing this on Remembrance Day. So it's especially nice.
Yes, yes. Now, Remembrance Day. Now, I don't see you having a poppy on. What's if it's Remembrance Day? What's happening?
Ah, I do have a poppy, but the last Friday um, in the month of October is typically when we start wearing poppies on our uniform. And depending on the uniform, you wear it in various places.
Okay.
But once the Remembrance Day ceremony is done on Remembrance Day, traditionally we take the poppy off and we lay it on a tomb or a memorial, and that's a part of our ceremony. So essentially, after we finished doing what we do, like I didn't go to a ceremony today, but I watched one on the big one in Ottawa. So when it was done, the poppy goes.
Okay. Well, again, that's interesting facts I did not know. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your service, though. I wanted to say, on behalf of the BBPA and the community as a whole, we thank you for those that are reaching out and protecting us on our front line. Let's go. Let's go into you. So, talk to me. Tell us about yourself, both personally and professionally.
All right. Well, firstly, Anton, I want to thank you um, for allowing me to do this. We met yesterday online, and I think we're kind of connected. But thank you, and I just want to thank Aunt Tanisha. Tanisha, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. She reached out to me last week, and in a way, she was asking, but she was saying, "You will do this." So yes, ma'am. Um, and then the same day it was followed by my good friend Francis Del Sol, just to punctuate it. She gave me a personal call and said, "Delroy, you will and you shall." So thanks, Francis, and to the BBP organization. I've done some work with the BBPA some years ago and been in connection. So thanks them as well, and to the audience today. Thanks for joining. I hope we can share some information that could be beneficial. Uh, well, my name is Delroy Gordon. My wife would like me to remind everybody that, I've been, she's been stuck with me for almost 30 years and got three growing children that reminds me that who's in charge now. Um, I've been in the military for more than half my life now. I started off part-time, and I've been working full-time now as a recruiter with the King Armed Forces. My trade, I can go on and on, but I'll just tell you my trade is uh, what the military trained me to do is to be an infantry soldier, and my job is to been trained anyway to close with and destroy the enemy by day or by night, regardless of weather, season, or terrain. Wow. Well, I have been doing that for a long time. I've been in office behind a computer and just telling people about the opportunities that came out for us. So that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, so That's actually very interesting. You mentioned a couple of pieces there. You have three grown children, married. Um, talk about your kids. Are they in the military as well?
No, the short answer is no. I would have, yeah, I would have liked for my kids to, I'd even consider it, and I guess they did. But it goes to show that, you give your kids an opportunity for things, and if they choose not to, that's perfectly fine.
That's absolutely correct.
You know what I mean? My daughter, my older daughter, I thought she would have kind of gone that way because she's much like dad. But when she asked me about it, she was concerned about her hair. So
Love
so
it, love it.
so enough said on your hair is fine, but she doesn't like the sweating and stuff in her hair. So that's out. And
No problem. But listen, so let's go back. Let's go back a bit. So tell me, what actually first drew you to want to serve?
wow, I hope I don't get too loquacious or too verbose here, but um, I won't get into the details, but yeah, my most recent memory actually goes back to around 1990 during the Gulf War. I used to sit and watch the highlights, and man, I would say to my mom, she's since passed away, but I used to say to my mom, "Mom, I'd love to be there," and she would say, "Derek, I can't believe you don't want to. Why you don't want to do that?" And she said, she said, she didn't want me to. She didn't want me to do it. But I joined the military after no, actually, I joined when she was around. But I joined the military because it's something that was in me, Anton. Just one of these things. I can't say it was a calling or what because I'm pretty eclectic. I like many different things,
Yeah,
but it was something that I was drawn to even as a kid. I was in the Boy Scouts when I now some 40 some odd years ago. And to this day, I still remember the Boy Scouts motto, which is be prepared and Boy Scout promises. I promise to do my best to love and serve God, my queen, my country, and my fellow men, and to live by the Scout law. So, that kind of uniform, parade, drill sort of thing, I was just drawn to it.
okay, all right. Okay, so when you talked about you were drawn to it, how did you know what you were drawn to? You said you talked about being in the infantry. Did you know you wanted to be in the infantry? Like, did you want to go Air Force? How do you know when you first said, okay, this is what I want to do?
Well, I didn't know much about the military. I didn't know even infantry, artillery, armored, and all that. I just knew I just wanted to be in the military. And, as kids, you picture the military or whatever in a certain way, and I just couldn't picture it being outdoors and in the field and so on. Just some hardship, and that's what I wanted. Believe it or not, I wanted to learn how to do something when you didn't want to do it. I wanted to be tested. I wanted to be tried, man. I wanted to, what I mean? That was me. I played football, soccer, and even swam in a swim team. A black man on a swim team is a sight for sore eyes, but I did that too. So I was much into that sort of thing. So the military was quite in line with that. And as it turned out, I didn't know anything about the military, but somehow it just, I don't want to call it divine, but it was just kind of fortuitous that the person I spoke to, um, I got into the infantry, which is exactly what I was drawn to. Now, knowing today that if I can get into a recruiting part of it, if I dare, that's one of the things that people misunderstand about the military, and I was one of them.
Before you get the recruiting cards, I'm going to about to get that just shortly.
Yeah.
I want to understand. You said once you got into it. So, what? Talk to me about your progression once you got it. So you came in as infantry, and how now you're a sergeant in the recruiting. Talk about that transition.
Well, the military has a whole number of occupations. We're a
Mm-hmm.
self-sustaining organization, from doctors to lawyers to infantry to cooks. We have a whole lot of occupations, and there are different ways to get in. And we have two components: full-time and part-time. So I got in and part-time. So I was at the time I was having a civilian job, and I was doing it on a part-time thing, but I got in as infantry. So I did my basic training. So the first thing you do is once you go through the application process, and the application process is not unlike other organizations, particular service organizations. So you write an aptitude test and so on. Perhaps we'll talk more about that in this interview. But you go through that, and then once you get through your swearing, you do your basic training. And the basic training, I'll just tell you, it's kind of like building a house. You dig a hole in the ground, you lay foundation. Once the foundation is set, you start to build on that. So that's essentially what we do. And then from there, you go on, you train, and you become proficient at your craft as an infantry soldier. And we're constantly training. We're constantly improving. The military doesn't sit still, you know. So from there, you know, you can progress in training and also in rank. And then at a certain level, it's based on your ability, your training, your courses, and how you're promoted and appointed to different positions.
Okay, okay. So, all right, that's interesting. So you talked about your progression there and what caused that progression. So you moved from a private and now you're a sergeant
Right.
and part of that. Okay. So you've talked about the progression, and so where you are now, you brought it up a little bit. Let's go towards that. So now
All
you
right.
are a recruiter for the army. What does that mean? What does that look like? Who are you trying
Oh
to
boy.
go? Talks about that.
Well, firstly, thank you for paying your taxes because that's part of where your hard-earned taxes go to keep me employed. So keep paying your
How
taxes.
voluntary that part is, but that's a different side. Go ahead.
I had to put that one in. Um, so as a recruiter, basically my job is to inform people about the Kenyan Armed Forces and let them know that they're viable opportunities. And let me dare say this, I got to get this in before I forget. Particularly in our community as as Black people, the book says we have not because we ask not. And
Yeah.
if I could just extend that, is sometimes when we don't have the information, and then sometimes when we have the wrong information, then that's going to ultimately lead to wrong decisions. And the idea that the military is not for us, it's not right. Or I don't want to join the military because I don't want to get killed or injured and subsequently, possibly die. And of course, it's a good reason. Who wants to die prematurely? But the military is not synonymous with getting killed or getting injured, because if that were the case, I wouldn't be talking to you. Now, I make no apologies. We defend the borders of Canada, and you can get killed or injured just as much as you can get killed or injured building a house. Building the CN Tower. I'm sure people died building the CN Tower. You hear people dying every day in the workplace. I'm not just talking about where we can see like police officers and so on, but dying isn't it? But we ensure that you try to be as safe as possible. So the idea that you shouldn't join the military because you're going to go to war, I hope that if nothing else I leave today is just dismiss that out of your head, get that out of your head. The military is about a career. You want to be an engineer, you want to be a pilot, you want to be a cook, you want to be an infantry soldier. The list goes on. So it's not just about going to war.
Interesting. I want to get to this a little bit later on, but you mentioned something that it kind of resonated. So if someone wants to go, say someone comes into the military, but they don't know how will they know that they
Right.
want to be an engineer, a pilot, whatever the case may be? Is it that you guys help guide them, or most people come in there with a preconceived notion? Well, I'm coming here, but ideally I want to be this.
All of the above. all of the above. Some people know about the military, and they know exactly. My grandfather's in the military, my father's my uncle, or whatever, or they just know, and they know what they want to do. They see the commercial. We have a website, so those sources are available, and that's how people come. And they come. We want you to come with the knowledge of what job you want to do. Okay. However, having that knowledge may not be may not be enough for you to get the job that you want. Because what the military is about is joining is about eligibility. So if you're eligible, you can apply, and if the process will determine whether or not you're suitable. So the first thing you do after you apply is you do an aptitude test. And again, not unlike other services, whether it be the police or fire, or a lot of government agencies, we're at an aptitude test. Test verbal skills, spatial skills, and problem solving, which is math. And it depends on how you perform on that test. The computer generates and shows you what occupations you're eligible for. All right.
Oh, okay.
So are you more technical skills or more administrative skills and so on? So That's a part of how people determine what occupation they want to do.
Okay. So you mentioned something here. Let's go back to it. So let's start the process from the beginning. You said if you're eligible. What does that look like? Help me to understand who is an
Okay.
ideal candidate that you would say is quote the most eligible.
Uh, um, I wouldn't, the process determine who's most suitable. Um, Eligibility is quite simple. You have to be a Canadian citizen. It's a federal organization, so you have to be a Canadian citizen. You have to be at least 17 years old. For some programs that we have for the educational plans, which I hope we can talk about, the education plans, you can be 16, but for the most part, it's 17 years old. And you have to be able to serve one contract, and the minimum contract you can serve is 3 years. Now it's a wide gap of the contractual period, but the minimum is 3 years. But the retirement age is 60, so you have to hit the road at 60, so to speak. But you have to. So in order to get in, you have to be able to serve at least one contract. So the maximum age is actually 56. So 17 to 56. And then lastly, you have to meet the educational requirements for your desired entry plan or occupation. So citizenship, age, and education.
Interesting. So in terms of citizenship, what about people that are just residents? Could they apply? They can't apply. Or
Well,
can they? Is that able to fast track them to say hypothetically they want to go that route?
I knew you were going to hit me with that tough one, I'm going to see if I can synopsize the response, though. The short answer is no. You must be a Canadian citizen, right?
Okay.
However, permanent residents may apply, providing there's a job that we can't find a Canadian citizen to do, or a Canadian citizen is not available to do.
Okay.
And also, if you have some special training from another military, for example, if you're an F-18 pilot from India, there might be some special consideration given if you're a permanent resident, but you have to be a citizen within a certain period of time. But it's that generally, you have to be a Canadian citizen, because for the most part, we can find a Canadian to do whatever job that we have.
Perfect. Now, I went to school in the States and in Canada. And when I was going to school in the States, there was a lot of guys in school that was going through school paid for by the military. Do you guys have a similar program up here in Canada as well? So you get someone as a citizen that may be, i.e., a student. Will you guys help them with that? Is that similar? Talk about.
All right. All right. So if you give me a little bit of length on this one there,
Right.
Anton,
I'll give you some runway. Go ahead.
This is one of my passion. It's one of the reasons why I stuck around as a recruiter over the number of years, because and this is where my verbose or being loquacious comes in. RMC, the Royal Military College, is our university, and it's a very prestigious university. We have two campuses, one in Kingston, Ontario, and the other one in St. Jean, Quebec. That's where we train the future leaders for the Canadian Armed Forces. So the Chris Hatfield, the Mark Garneau, the Sharon Donnellys, notable Canadians that have gone through this school. And how do you get in? You have good grades and you're a Canadian citizen. That's it, man. So some years ago, when I got to recruiting, I went through the kind of the yearbook, and I looked at graduate, and I went back years or so in the 2000s, early 2000s, and I did some fundamental math. I counted all the white faces, white male, and I counted all the female, and then I counted all the visible minority. And I did some rudimentary math. Thank God my mother sent me to school and I didn't eat my lunch money. 75% man, white male, 23% white female. So that's 98%, and the rest was, visible minority. To me, that's not what Canada looks like, man.
Yeah.
But you see, Mama said, if you ask not, you'll have none. If you don't know, you don't. So I said, I'm going to be that ram in the thicket. I'm going to be that catcher in the rye that sends that message that, listen, man, if you have that ability, if you meet the requirements, you can do this. rather than say, I don't want to join the military. Somebody's going to pay me to go to school, give me money, give me a paycheck to go to school, pay for my books and pay for my tuition. And then I'm going to come out with a degree and then go right into a job. I don't have to go knocking on doors for a job. And a blind man can see that's a good deal. You know what I mean? So that's what the military has. And this is not just, I am not talking rhetoric, man. This is what your taxpayers' dollars pay for. But unfortunately, we don't know, on a broader scale, we don't know. And when we do know, we kind of dismiss it. We don't want to fight nobody war. I went to a presentation some years ago, and a young lady, while I was setting up my gear to present, the young lady said, "Sir, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "Sir," said, "my daddy said." So right away, I gauged her age, and I said, "Okay, her daddy's around my age." She said, "Black men shouldn't join the military because the military puts them in the front line." I said, "My goodness gracious, man. First of all, which front line are you talking about? What's a front line?" You know what I mean? You're way back in the day when they used to fight wars and people sat one group stand up on fire and the one stand up. That sort of information that's being given to people disallows people from making that informed decision. You know, so she was she was Caribbean. I'm not going to say which Caribbean island, but it's unfortunate that people have this information and they're not able to make an informed decision. So, specifically, we do if you're a high school student, for example, Anton, and you want to go to university, you make the grade, whether or not you want to join the military, you make the grade. And if you basically make the grade have at least a 75% average in university prep, hey, the military could be something that's in your wheelhouse.
Let me ask you a question. There's a question that came in here. Let me forward on to you. It says, is an international degree considered, is that sufficient, or does it have to be a Canadian education as a prerequisite?
Well, quite simply, you just have to have it evaluated. Just have to evaluate the Canadian standard. And there are a couple of services that do that evaluation. The big one that we use is WES, World Education Services. And once you just send it in, let's just say you have your education from UWI or from some university in France, Germany, it really doesn't matter. You send it in and they evaluate it, and usually comes back to a 4-year bachelor's or high school or college that's recognized in Canada. So we have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people that fall into that category.
Perfect. Again, I wanted to draw something back because, again, going to school in the States, a lot of individuals would go to the States because the Army would actually straighten them up. So what happens to, I'm not sure if that's prevalent in Canada, but what happens to someone that the Army straightened them up, so their past is a little bit rocky, they may not have those grades, they have the basics, would you guys, would they be eligible for education or not really?
Let me see if I can break it down this way, that there are a number of entry plans, a number of ways to get into the military. Mm-hmm. All right. One of which is the education path. All right. That's not the bigger path. The bigger path is the direct entry path, where you either have a university degree or you don't have a university degree. But essentially, those are the two main paths. So remember, the basic eligibility is you're a Canadian citizen, you're at least 17, and the minimum education that you require is grade 10. Now, some of our entry plans are required to have a master's degree or an undergraduate degree or college diploma, high school, but the minimum for eligibility is grade 10, right? Most people come with a lot more than that. But once you have that, you can apply. And once you write that aptitude test, then and get the results, then you can see the number of occupations that you are eligible for. The military will train you. And that's a unique thing about the military. We do have schools. So if you're adverse to going to school and think you're going to join the military because you don't want to be in a school environment, not so. We have to teach you. But the way the military trained is very specific. The training is very specific to your job. So you're going to learn what you need to learn. You're going to be in a classroom atmosphere. You're going to have an instructor. You're going to have homework. You know what I mean? you won't have detention, but we have different ways to straighten you up. But the military trains. It's one of the largest organizations that trains Canadian youth. I see some people that's just high school education, and they're smarter than you and I put together after the military is through with them. So basically, you can come in two ways. If you have a university degree, you can come in as an entry scheme called as an officer, right? Officers tend to be the managers. They're in a command role. They deal more with policy and more administration, less hands-on. And then the other entry scheme is non-commissioned member, where you don't require a university degree, where you are more hands-on. You're the leaders, you're the trainer. You're the one that execute that mission.
Okay.
I see there are a lot of questions in the chat. So I don't know if Tanisha, you want to somebody could manage the chat, and you can.
They're coming up. I'm seeing you're drawing a lot of questions here. So,
Yeah.
So let me ask a question that's actually going through. Question that came out. The military. You said the military will actually train you, right?
Yes.
So how to understand? Oh, I hear someone saying something. Go ahead.
No, it's fine, Anton. You've answered the questions all in the chat.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You had mentioned when you originally came in that you can actually go through education, but there's also two roles. There's a part-time role and a full-time role.
Yeah.
Can someone go to school so when they're going to school, can they go to school part-time and then be in the military? Or is that they go to military, when they're in the military, they're in school, that's considered full-time? How does that work? Talk to me about that.
All right. There are two components in the K Armed Forces. We have three environments: land, air, and sea. Royal Canadian Navy, Royal Canadian Air Force, and the Army. That comprises the military. So when you talk about a lot of time people just talk about Army. Army is just one of the elements. We have Army, Navy, and Air Force. All right, those three elements, and they operate in the respective environments. Army, land, Air Force, the air, and the Navy, the sea. And then we have two components: full-time and part-time. Now the part-time is very unique. In that part-time is what it means. It's part-time. It's primary reserve. So you have your full-time job as a firefighter, as a teacher, as working at IBM, working in a factory. It doesn't really matter. You have your part-time job. I mean, your full-time job rather. But you or your student. For the most part, 40% of part-time is our students, and it's an excellent opportunity for students to be in school, earn some money, and grow, develop leadership, develop some skills, and have a job and have a path to a career possibly. So part-time, essentially, you train one evening a week and 1 week in a month. You stay in your local area. You're from Toronto, you stay in the Toronto area. So you're after you finish your basic training, which is done on weekends or in the summertime. And typically people are, for the most part anyway, students are out of school in the summertime, or people can score some time with their job. They can get a lot of training done in the summertime. That's how the reserves or part-time, they do it. Most training's done on weekend and summertime. So you commit to one evening a week and 1 weekend a month, and you do it as long as you want. There's no contraction, there's no contract. It just, it's a moral contract. So you're morally obligated to do your duty as a part-time member, but there is no contract. Whereas with the full-time now, there are contracts, and anywhere from 3 years, as I mentioned, all the way up to the longest contract is 17 years. But there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years. It all depends on what your job is that you come in as. For example, the 17-year contract, so that people know you're going to be a pilot. That's the only one that's 70. And the pilot, it costs about $2 million to train a pilot. $2 million of money, on your money. So for $2 million, the military is going to squeeze you a little bit harder. So we want you to stick around a little bit longer. All right. And also, if the military paid for you to get your degree, go to RMC and get a degree for 4 years, the military said, we want you to stick around for at least 5 years. If they pay for you to go to medical school, they say, okay, we want you to stick around for at least 4 years. So, if we train you on a technical job, we invest all that time and training into you, we want you to stick around for 5 years. So that's the idea.
That's actually interesting. So let me back up. So if someone wants to go to school, will the military pay for both public and for military school? Like, so say I was U of T, I was Michigan and U of T. If I was military, would you guys pay for UFT as well, or only if I went to the military college?
You know your job well, man. That's an excellent question. uh, well, once upon a go, up until about 3 years ago, the answer to your question would have been yes. To go to university and military would subsidize your education at RMC or any one of the 92 or 93 universities across the country, including UFT and Ryerson and so on. Once upon a time, they stopped that about 3 years ago, and you could only go to RMC for your university degree. However, there's certain jobs that it's not offered at RMC. RMC only has 19 degree programs in art, science, and engineering. So if you want to join as a nurse and you want to go through one of the educational plans as a nurse, the military doesn't have a nursing school. So you would have to get an unconditional acceptance into a university, Kinney University, as nursing. Same thing with doctor or dentist or physiotherapy. Then you would have to go to a civilian university.
Okay, fair enough. We have a question coming that just came in right now. Tanisha, over to you on the question.
Yes. So Shrimda Sabaral has asked, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, does the military have positions for anything related to geography or history? She's talking about herself. She has a double master's in these two fields, but she's not sure if there are related job options in the military. So that's geography and history, a master's degree in both.
Well, with a master's degree, or there are a number of jobs that you can do, or undergraduate degrees, a number of jobs you can do. But specifically for geography, we have people that make maps and deal with maps. So the short answer to that is yes. But I'm not sure if that's what she's talking about. When she says history, you're talking about maybe teaching.
Would you like for me to bring her up?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Perfect.
Sure, go ahead.
Hey, not teaching specifically, but yeah, mapping definitely interests me a lot in geography, but not teaching in history. But if there are other options, yeah, I'm willing to know about it.
Well, there's a job that we have that's called a geotech. You can go online and take a look at that job. They do map making, and I can't get into the weeds exactly what they do, but generally speaking, they deal with map making. I'm sure you could probably have a better idea of what the type of what type of work is involved in that. But what's your undergraduate degree in history?
No. It's I have it in electronics and communication engineering.
Well, we have a communication engineer job that might be up your alley as well.
There's a reason why I switched from that. I didn't want to take it, further in the career. That was a bit too technical for myself or for my liking, which is why I switched to that. History and geography.
We train you.
Okay, good to know. But my situation is very different because I am not a Canadian citizen yet. And I moved to Canada just a year ago. So I'm very new. I'm still learning about things and, I'm gathering all information I can.
Excellent. I think that's important for, because knowledge is power. So the one of the basic eligibilities, you must be a Canadian citizen, but I'll tell you this, the military is not going anywhere. When you do become a citizen, we'll be right here. I may not be here, but but the military will be here. So I do strongly encourage you to check the website. There's a wealth of information on the website, and you might find something that is appealing to you, which may not have anything to do with geography, but because of your education is that foundation. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily build on, but a foundation to go.
Right.
We have another question. Tanisha, there's another question.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
So sorry about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. So John Kinnear wishes to find out, he understands that there's basic training that takes place full-time over 4 months in Gagetown, New Brunswick for an officer, part-time reserves. He wants to know if for someone with a young family, that would pose a challenge for him. Are there any other routes or trades that would allow someone to stay closer to home? And he also wants to know about the intelligence company of the military.
Wow. Let me see if I can put that into one. You mentioned part-time, but that's not entirely correct. If you go in Gagetown, chances are it's going to be full-time. And I will say this, the military is for anybody, but it's not for everybody, all right? And your particular circumstance may allow you to join the military, or your situation may not. So having said that, if you do join the military full-time, you must be prepared to do your duty whenever and wherever called upon. I can't really dance around that too much. You got to be able to do your duty wherever and wherever called upon. We're a federal organization, and we cover Canada, second biggest country in the world, as well as we have a international or global responsibility. So you can be posted to a base, a ship, or a unit. I can't make any apologies about that. So as a military member full-time, you're required to serve. So if you do have a family, not a problem. You can train in the military full-time. You will go to Saint Jean, Quebec, do your basic training. It's actually 3 months. And then after that, you'll go and learn your actual trade. And once you've finished then that trade, learning your trade, you'll be posted to a base, a ship, or unit. At that time, the military will come and support you, move your family, come to your house, pack up your TV. We have movers that we hire, come in and do all that legwork. You don't have to lift the chair. The military pack you up, put your stuff in the truck, move your car. In fact, they will fly you out to where you're going to go, you and your wife. You can find what is called a house hunting trip. You go ahead, you find a house or accommodation, and they pay for all that. The expenses are all taken care of. You come back and you pack up and you leave, and you move you and your family to wherever you're going to be doing your job. Hopefully that kind of sheds some light on your question.
Right. And then the second part about the intelligence company.
I think he's probably looking at two different things. For the reserves, there's something that's the intelligence company in Toronto. That's a small reserve unit in Toronto, and that's part-time. For intelligence, there's in the regular force of full-time, you have two intelligence operator, and that's where you don't require a university degree. And the military, once you meet the basic requirements, you write the aptitude tests, so on and so forth, then you can become an intelligence operator where the military will train you. And then there's the intelligence officer where you require a university degree, and you go through the same process, you write an aptitude test and so on, and the military will train you, and you go on and being an intelligence officer. So we have an intelligence operator, intelligence officer. Those are the two jobs that we have in the military. Now you can do other intelligence stuff, but in terms of having that job title, or is intelligence operator or intelligence officer.
Very interesting.
He has a follow-up. Duran, would you like to come up and speak?
I think he said he was asking about the reserve. So maybe with the reserves, it's a part-time unit in Toronto that they operate over at Shepherd there. If you go on info.toronto, info.toronto at forces.gc.ca, just fire off an email there, and we'll provide you with some information as to like, I don't do any recruiting for the reserves. I'm a full-time guy, but we will lead you in the right direction for the reserves. All right.
Again, it's a lot of lively questions here today.
Yeah.
So listen, let's skip back a bit. Let's step back. Let's talk about, so someone comes into the military. What does a career path in the military typically look like, both for a part-time or a full-time? What's a full-time look like? And we're talking about in terms of tenure, compensation, say retirement. What's about that?
Wow. Time is slipping by so quickly, man. I told you I'm a chatter. The military is focused on development. We want you to develop. We want you to grow. And the idea of the military, they want that pound of flesh out of you. But at the same time, you should say, I want something out of the military. So it's reciprocity here. You know what I mean? So sometimes you can go as far as you want to go. All right. But nothing's for free. It's what you put in that you get. So sometimes you require training, sometimes some education, right? But the path it's a progressive path in the military for anybody. You come as a private recruit, private trained, then private full, then corporal 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, then master corporal at different levels, then sergeant different levels, warrants, master warrants. That's on the non-commissioned member side. I told you the 2 entry scheme. On the officer side, you start an officer, cadet, and in between there you have second lieutenant, lieutenant, captain, major, blah, 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 all the way up to general. So the path in the military for anybody, it's an upward path, but it depends on the individual. It's your personal goals and it's your personal ambition. We do have military career counselors, not correction, military career managers. They'll say, okay, it's time for you to do your leadership course. And you go do your leadership course. It's time for you to do this course so that you can go to your next level. And they manage your career, but also they manage hundreds of people's career, but you only have to manage one as an individual. So you manage your own career. If you know that you want to, for example, for me, the military subsidized my education, right? They paid for me to partially anyway, to go back to college and go to university, get my degree, and my degree says I'm smart. But I used my training in the military, believe it or not, I used my training in the military to help me at that level, so it's what you put in. The opportunities are there, but it really, I can't emphasize this more, it depends on the individual. Some people say, oh, if I'm lucky. There's no such thing as luck, man. It's not lucky, it's if you're prepared and you seize the opportunity. Luck is where preparedness meets availability or opportunity, right? So it all depends on the individual.
Okay, I'm going to ask a few more questions, but before we have a question from Tanisha.
Yes, so we just wanted to also understand, it's felt that the military largely recruits for young people. Is there a maximum age for entering the military? Can one be too old?
Today I was watching the parade, and the National Silver Star mother, where her son passed away in the military in 2004. She joined the military because her son joined the military. And while she was joining, the person asked her, what did your son say? He said, Mom, don't embarrass me. But she joined the military because her son joined the military. So you can do the math, right? She wasn't a young person. So the answer to that, you don't have to be a young person. Now it depends on what you define as young, right? The maximum age is 56. The minimum age is 17. So, but the reality of it is, the target mark is 18 to 34, but I've seen 54-year-olds come in, and I've seen 16-year-old come in. Again, it all depends. There's no ageism in the military. There's no discrimination. We processed a guy yesterday. He was 55 yesterday.
That's actually interesting. So Tanisha, did that answer your question, Tanisha? You're good? Perfect. So let's go back now. So a career in the military in contrast to career in public service, particularly, private service, really, particularly right now when you see a lot of people are losing their jobs, what are you finding? Are you finding a big influx into the military forces? And what is the comparison? Is salary around the same? Is benefits around the same? How does it vary?
Well, one, we haven't fired anybody due to COVID. In fact, people have gotten jobs over COVID. As it relates to, there's job security in the military. If you do your job well, you can stick around until you decide that you're gonna pack it in. But nobody's been fired or let go because of COVID. In terms of the salary, it's competitive. It really is. I've got a wife and family and kids and home and so on. I have an understanding of what industry is like, and it is competitive. You're not going to be able to buy a small island on your salary in the military, right? But you should be okay if you manage your finances wisely, whether in the military or otherwise. You know what I mean? So I'll give you this one. Maybe give you a picture. Remember, I said the minimum eligibility requirements is 17, all right, and grade 10. And a Canadian citizen. So here's this young woman that's 17 years old, and she wants to be a human resource administrator. If she goes through the process, aptitude tests and so on and so forth, ideally she finished high school. We wanted to finish high school, but she said, I want to join the military. In fact, I had a young lady like that last week. Honestly, she was bright girl, university background classes, but she says, I want to join the military. Honestly, averaging in the 80s, 90s, but she says, I want to join the military as a human resource administrator. I said, what did your mother say? She says, well, she's supportive. What did your father say? Well, they're supportive, and this, so the parents are supportive. That's what she wanted to do, right? So here's a 17-year-old. She goes through the process, her salary is going to be $36,000 a year to start. Now that might sound like a little or a lot, but you tell me what 17-year-old you're going to pay that don't have anything between their ear. Well, with 17, it's $36,000. And the military will train you from flash to bang. The following year, that same 17-year young lady is going to make $44,000 a year. Now she's 18, making $44,000. The following year, she's 19, now making $52,000 a year. So, that might sound like a lot or a little, but that's why I say it's competitive. If you have a university degree and you join as an officer, when you're going to go out there in an industry, my daughter finished university a couple of years ago, and the salary that she's making is not what she would be starting with the military. And she's been doing that job for a couple of years. So it's competitive.
So, all right, great, fair enough. So give us a broad range. You brought something up there a second ago. What is the starting for someone that's coming in as an officer? Starting, generally speaking.
Well, you didn't see, I just tried to avoid that.
Yeah, it was that down to Reggie, but I said, catch you back at the
$53,000 as an officer. All right, $53,000. You start as coming out of university, and the following year, it's an up for the first 15 years of your military career. A line out, your salary goes in one direction. That's up. Perfect. Because I didn't want to get into too much details, because if you're at a certain rank, you have different levels in that rank.
Yeah.
So your first rank you come in as an officer is second lieutenant. Then once you finish your training, then you're going to promote to lieutenant. And at lieutenant is lieutenant 1, 2, 3, and each level is commensurate with us. And then the next rank and so on.
Perfect. So that's okay. So now that I hit it hard, let's move away from it. What's the average tenure of someone that goes in the military? What's the average tenure?
I couldn't tell you. I wish I could tell you the average, but most of my colleagues, they stick around for a while, and maybe that's because we're all here. So you're like our mutual friend there that with Miss Del Sol there, Anthony, my partner in crime. He's been in now for about 30 some odd years. His wife's 25 years, and she's doing part-time now, and she's looking at some other things now. I've been around for a better part of 30 years. But I don't know what the average is. But people do stick around, as well as some people, after basic training, they're gone.
Perfect. Right? I'm going to start wrapping up because I know we're running out of time, but you have some great questions here. Is there any extra benefits? Like, I don't know, again, in the States, they'll preferential mortgage rates, or what other benefits could someone receive by being there?
Listen, my friend, there's a book on it.
All right. What is the top 5? Give us the top 5.
Salary. Medical. The job itself, knowing that you're serving your country.
Personal satisfaction.
That personal, job satisfaction. Travel. Camaraderie.
Okay.
Relationships.
Now, you had mentioned earlier, now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to try to hit it real hard real quick. You had mentioned earlier on, 98% of the people do not represent our community. What is the career path for like someone in our community? Is there challenges? Are they actually trying to do a lot to accelerate that growth? Like, what is that like for?
All right. Well, 98% RMC, but the military in a whole is actually 4% of Islamorah, which is not. It may not seem significant, but it's a lot better than when I started, which it was about 1.5 or 2%. So it's gone up quite a bit. But we're actively recruiting and I want to push this hard. We're actively recruiting for diverse people from diverse groups. So visible minority and women. I want to impress on women out there, visible minority. We're actively recruiting. So what's it like being a Black man in Kenya Armed Forces? It's no different than being a Black man in general society. You got to perform, right? You can't miss that I'm Black, whether in the military or not. I'm a very conscious Black man, and I don't beat any drum, but I don't take a step back. Is there racism? I know you haven't gotten there to that question, but there's racism everywhere. Do I experience it in the military on any scale? No. But is it there? Yeah. Have I seen it? Sure. But has it impacted my career? No. If it's visible and you're caught, you're burned. Plain and simple. You're fried. If discrimination, because you do sign at the beginning, you get caught, you're dead. And they're not wasting any time to shine their boot in your behind. You're gone. Right? So we can't just extract racism out of society. And the military, as members that come from society, they come with their own whatever, you know what I mean? But I would say this, if you're caught, if you are, keep it to yourself. Ideally, don't be that way. But if you're caught, you fry.
Interesting. So let's switch it a little bit now. They say most people go through a career change, at least 2 career changes in their life. Mm-hmm. So say someone is, I know you said the ideal is between 18 and 34, but say someone's mid-career and they have a background, but they want to change a total different direction. Is that something that's common? Is that something that's, how does that work? Like, talk
Absolutely. As a lot of people, Anton, man, they come to the military to say, they're looking for just a change of career. I was talking.
One question with that. And when they do come in, do they have to start all over again? Or is there a transition where they're kind of evaluated based upon their public work experience into the military experience?
For the most part, starting all over again, I don't like that term because it suggests that you're starting way back from the beginning. But if you come into the military with experience and training that's directly related to your job that you come into, yeah, you're coming at a higher level.
Okay.
As long as you have that education, training, skills, experience that's directly related to that job. You can't come in and say, I got leadership skills or I'm result oriented. You know what I mean? I'm task oriented. No, those are not skills, But if you say you come in and you know how to, if you're a map, that young lady, and so you experience in designing maps, hey, we'll take you. You come in and you say, okay, I got my red seal, as a cook, and those are direct skills that you have. If you come in, say you want a career change.
I see someone coming here as, I'll let Tanisha read it out.
Go ahead. So just it's pretty much a follow-on coming from Joan Wright on your earlier question about diversity and recruiting for people of color. She wanted to know whether or not the military has a representation challenge. And in your work, is there an impact on recruiting people from the Black community, or from people of colors from that community?
Well, that's why I'm here today with BBPA. That's part of it. We want to get the message out to as wide as we can that the military is a viable organization. It is a suitable organization for people of color. That's the message that the military wants to get out as well. Is there a challenge? Of course, there's a challenge. But we meet the challenges head on. And we do what we can and what we have to get that message out that we are actively recruiting for everybody, whether you're Black or whether you're white, whether you're male or female, whether you're Aboriginal, whether you're an immigrant, it doesn't matter. The military is actively recruiting, and we're specifically, and I could say we're targeting women, and we're targeting visible minority, and we're targeting Aboriginal.
Good stuff. It's Ken Souza wishes to find out if the dental field has opportunities for her in the military. She's in the dental field.
Sure, I'll be real quick about that. If you have a license to practice dentistry in Canada, you can apply. or if you have an unconditional acceptance into a dentistry school, the military can subsidize your education while you're studying. And then after when you graduate, then you have a certain period of time that you serve being a dentist in the military.
You know, this is actually interesting, as I said, particularly at this time. So what is it? What are you finding right now within the community itself as people go in the pandemic? Many people being laid off. Is there a lot of people coming to the military right now? And if so, say I want to go to the military. I said, listen, I feel like being a pilot. Now I know you said you got to do the aptitude test, but say I only want to be Navy. Can I request that, or it doesn't work that way? I just go in there and the aptitude test will say if I go Navy, Air Force, Army. How does that work?
It's both. It's both. You come in and you want to be a pilot, okay? Then I'm going to say, do you have a degree? And then you're going to say yes. The military is eligibility, suitability. If you're eligible, you can apply. So part of the eligibility requirements to be a pilot is an officer position. So you have to have a university degree. What degree do you need? It doesn't matter. For pilot, it could be underwater basket weaving. It doesn't matter. As long as you have a degree, you're eligible to be a pilot. Then you write the aptitude test. Now, this is where it comes in now as it gets into the suitability part now with the aptitude test, because you have to do exceptionally well for pilots. That particular occupation, right now, the tool that we have in place, because it's a competitive field, small and less jobs, you have to do well on the aptitude test.
Got you. So it's all aptitude based. Okay, interesting. So coming out of this, what advice would you give someone that is looking to pursue a career in that? What advice, particularly someone of our community?
Oh boy, I wish I can just, I have some time to sit down and just have a heart-to-heart conversation with people, for considering what I know and what my experience is. I make it simple. There are opportunities in the military, and you got to work while it's day. Seize the opportunity while it's there. Don't tell yourself that, hey, I don't want to do this because I don't want to fight anybody's war. I don't want to get killed or injured. No, it's a career opportunity, man. So what I would tell you, if you set yourself up to make a decision, don't let people tell you what you can't do. Tell people what you don't want to do. But so you got to, and the basis for that is it goes back to education. It is the foundation. And joining the military is not running away and joining the circus. No, man. It's not like back in the day when the judge says, because you got your hand in the cookie jar, hey, that door leads you to prison, that one join the military. Not so, man. If you do well in school, whether it's the military or not, you give yourself opportunity. So for our people, our Black young brothers and Black young sisters, strive for excellence in everything that you do. I don't want to sound preachy, but, strive for excellence in school, give yourself opportunity. I'm not pitching the military to say, join the military. I'm saying, look at the military as a viable option. And based on what you bring to the table, you choose.
Perfect. Tell us, where would somebody wants to find some more information, how do they personally get in contact with you or with someone else in that branch? How would someone find out more? What's the contact information?
All right. As we would say in the military, prepare to write. One is, you can always get me through Frances. she had the only thing that she hasn't been to my house yet, but Frances has me, and if she can't find me, she knows who can find me. So Frances is a good source, okay? And I'm always happy to help on a one-on-one. I am thrilled just to work with anybody, but you got to come with something. You don't get something for nothing. I don't work like that. I don't hunt anybody down. You find me. So here's my information. One is the general information is what I mentioned before. I think Tanisha put that out. Is the info.toronto@forces.gc.ca. That's a general box. And I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to give you my email address. It's delroy.gordon. That's DELROY.Gordon, GORDON @forces.gc.ca. All right. If you're interested, and you know what, if you give me a holler, just tell me that was from BBPA, and then that way I can communicate it back to Frances and Tanisha and I to let you know that this type of program is working.
Absolutely perfect. Well, we look like we're running out of time for today's. Listen, Sergeant Delroy Gordon, I tell you this, it was an absolute pleasure having you on today. and sharing
Likewise.
the information. I think it's really key within our community, because I think you're right. I think right now it's not often seen as a viable source, and it should be. But as we come to the end of today, and as we celebrate Memorial Day for those that have gone to defend our country, we thank you. We thank you for your service. We thank you for coming on. And on behalf of the BBPA and the whole community, we want to lift you up and say thank you. To the rest of everyone that's attending today, will be attending at future references as replaying this. We thank you again. This is put on today by the Ask the Professional series put on by the BBPA as we look to support the community, particularly as we going through this new post-pandemic society. Everyone else, it looks like we've run to the end. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.